Thank you for joining us for the first webinar in the Virginia Autism Council's Lunch webinar series. My name is Rachel Payne, and I work for a rehab services provider, and I've been part of the Virginia Autism Council for 5 years now. Before I introduce our speaker, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items, which you should be able to see on your screens right now. There is real-time captioning being provided by Virginia Relay on the left side of the screen. All attendees' videos should be off, so if everyone can please turn your videos off and make sure that you mute your lines as well until we call on you if there are any questions. We would prefer for you to type any questions that you do have in the chat box, and we have someone who will be monitoring them, and we'll bring those up during the presentation, and we will also have time for questions at the end. Also, a certificate of attendance will be provided for those who attend the live session all the way through. You will receive those in your email. And as well, this session is being recorded. So today we have Heather Norton, who will share a presentation on navigating supports and services. Heather is Assistant Commissioner of Developmental Services for the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. She has worked in the field of developmental disabilities for the past 30 years. Prior to working at DBHDS, she worked for Chesterfield Community Services Board, and prior to that in Pennsylvania, where she supervised and developed a children's behavioral health program and worked with individuals with developmental disabilities in a variety of capacities. I have had the pleasure of knowing Heather for several years now and working with her during her time when I first started on the Virginia Autism Council, so I will hand it over to her. So without further ado, here's Heather Norton.
Good afternoon, everybody. We will, I hope, I will figure out how to navigate. I'll learn how to navigate Zoom and this meeting. As Rachel mentioned, we'll be doing navigating supports and services and through the developmental disability system today, and we'll go ahead and get started. What I wanted to start with is just a little explanation. As many of you likely know, back in 2016, we redesigned our waivers. Prior to 2016, we had a bifurcated waiver system that focused on individuals with developmental disabilities on one waiting list, individuals with intellectual disabilities on another waiting list. We streamlined our waiver system, and it is a needs-based access. So individuals with a developmental disability, inclusive of individuals with intellectual disabilities, enter the system through the CSB, or the Community Service Board for your area. In Virginia, there are 40 community service boards. At the CSB, eligibility for services and supports is determined, and depending on eligibility, an individual is placed on the wait list based on a priority level of need. Once that priority level of need is determined, as waiver slots become available, individuals are presented to a waiver slot assignment committee, and then determination is made as to what waiver slot a person needs, whether that's our new building independence waiver, our family and individual supports waiver, or our community living waiver. And I will go into more detail with that on all of those. And so first we'll talk about the DD waiver eligibility factors. And so first and foremost, an individual must possess a diagnosis of a developmental disability, and also then meet level of care criteria determined by the Virginia Individuals with Developmental Disabilities Eligibility Screening Tool, or the VIDES. They must also meet Medicaid financial eligibility and be willing to accept services within 30 days. And so here is the Commonwealth's definition of a developmental disability, meaning a severe and chronic disability of an individual that is attributed to a mental or physical impairment, or a combination of mental and physical impairments other than a sole diagnosis of mental illness. It must be manifested before the individual reaches the age of 22 years. must be likely to continue indefinitely, and then it has to result in functional limitations in 3 or more of the following major life activity areas, including self-care, receptive and expressive language, learning, mobility, self-direction, capacity for independent living, and economic self-sufficiency. And then finally, it reflects the individual's need for a combination and sequence of special interdisciplinary or generic services. And
Heather, it's Rachel. I'm just gonna ask a quick question.
yes.
Put into the chat box. What age can someone apply?
Actually, we have individuals as young as 6 months on the waiting list.
Thank you.
All right. So the Virginia Individual DD Eligibility Survey or Screening Tool replaces our level of functioning survey that was used prior to that. It's used initially and then annually by the support coordinator or case manager to confirm functional eligibility for the DD waivers. And we have a version for children that are under 18 and a version for adults. The VIDES has 8 different categories: health status, communication, task learning skills, personal and self-care, motor skills, behavior, community living skills, and self-direction skills. And individuals must meet 3 of these categories in order to be considered eligible for the waiver.
Heather, one more question. Is there an upward limit, age limit for applying for a waiver?
No, there is not. Anybody, if they meet the DD criteria, are eligible for the waiver regardless of age.
Hey, Heather, this is Richard. Could you please go to the Relay browser screen and just select the option to hide?
Okay, so let's talk about the statewide waiver wait lists. All 3 amended waivers serve individuals with a diagnosis of developmental disabilities, which includes individuals with intellectual disabilities. Individuals seeking waiver services for persons with any developmental disability have diagnostic and functional eligibility confirmed by their local CSB, and then are placed on the statewide waiting list. And the waiver wait lists are maintained by the local CSB for all individuals under their jurisdiction, including those served by private DD case management agencies. It is important to note that DBHDS updates the annual waiting list status through a mail out to individuals who are on the wait list, so that we do need individuals to respond to those letters that they receive in terms of confirming their continued desire to remain on the wait list. So in terms of eligibility, if a slot is not available, the support coordinator determines the individual's priority needs level, and there are 3 priority needs level: priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3. Places the person's name on the waiting list via the waiver management system, which is known as WAMS, and then completes a critical needs summary documenting the person's level of urgency. So as I said, there are 3 different levels of priority need. Priority 1 is individuals who need the waiver services within 1 year or emergently, as in immediately, and meet specific criteria. Priority 2 require waiver services in 1 to 5 years. And priority 3 is those individuals who may not present for waiver services in over 5 years. I think the important thing to note here is that somebody's priority status can change literally within a day. And so it is always important to update your case manager on your needs, so that as waiver slots become available, are aware of your current need level and getting people connected appropriately. To be considered for a slot assignment, an individual must be determined to meet one of the priority 1 criteria, accept the specific waiver if it were offered, and continue to meet diagnostic and functional eligibility requirements, be willing to accept services within 30 days. And so let's talk about what happens when CSBs have slots available for assignment. They contact the waiver slot assignment committee facilitator, who calls a meeting. The top scoring critical need summary individuals are included in the waiver slot assignment committee scoring summary. And the slot assignment review forms for these individuals are forwarded to the waiver slot assignment committee facilitator for distribution prior to the meeting. It's important to note that those critical needs summaries are de-identified, and so the waiver slot assignment committee does not know the individuals' own names. They only know their support needs. After the waiver slot assignment committee determination, DBHDS enrolls people in the waiver, and the case manager initiates people to supports and services, as well as scheduling the sports intensity scale review. So who are the waiver slot assignment committee members? They are an impartial body of trained volunteers for each locality, region, responsible for assigning waiver slots according to urgency of need. They are comprised of community members who are not affiliated with the Community Service Board or a private provider. And they have some knowledge and or experience supporting or working with individuals with developmental disabilities or the service system. We also make sure that the WSAC members receive training, maintain confidentiality of information, and meet as required to determine persons with the highest level of need. So our waiver slot assignment committee members cannot be any person with a direct or indirect interest in the outcome of the proceedings. They cannot be current CSB employees or board members, current employees, owners, or board members of any agency providing waiver services, unless they're serving on a waiver slot assignment committee in an area in which the provider does not provide services. And they cannot be family members of individuals who are seeking waiver services. Our waiver slot assignment committee responsibility of the members are to participate in the training offered by the department, review information presented regarding the nominees for vacant slots, and hold confidential all information reviewed. The waiver slot assignment committees meet as required to determine persons with the highest level of need. And so typically our waiver slot assignment committees obviously meet every year when we have new slots that are assigned through the General Assembly, but also as slots become available within the community service boards as slots turn over due to various reasons. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 different waivers that are available to individuals. One is the building independence waiver, and this is for adults who are 18 and older and who are able to live independently in their community. For those individuals, this waiver is for those individuals who are able to own, lease, or control their own living arrangements, and supports are complemented by non-waiver funded rent subsidies. The family and individual supports waiver is for individuals living with their families, friends, or in their own homes, including supports for those with some medical or behavioral needs. And the family and individual supports waiver is available to both children and adults. And then finally, the community living waiver includes residential supports and a full array of medical, behavioral, and non-medical supports available to adults and children, and may include 24/7 supports for individuals with complex medical and behavioral support needs through licensed services. So each of these waivers subsequently increases in terms of the amount of supports and services that it affords an individual related to and according to their support needs. However, not everybody has access to waiver or waiver support services when they initially need those waiver supports and services. There is currently a approximately 13,000 person waiting list. So what can people do while they're waiting for access to supports and services through the waiver? So we put together a little bit of information about some of those supports and services that are available to people. And so the first thing is that in addition to having the DD waiver that supports individuals with developmental disabilities, there's also the Commonwealth Coordinated Care Plus waiver, or CCC Plus waiver, that individuals may be eligible for. In order to determine eligibility for the CCC Plus waiver, there's a few things that need to be considered. First and foremost, are individuals financially eligible? And this is based on the individual's income, not the entire family. If this is a child, they do not have income, so that criteria is met. It then also looks at functional eligibility. So support needs such as assistance and supervision with eating, with dressing, bathing, using the restroom, or other things like that. And then medical and nursing needs. Does the individual need or use physical or chemical restraints? Can they not self-assess or monitor? Are they in need of respiratory therapy, therapeutic exercise, multiple or complex interrelated conditions? And then, finally, is the person at imminent risk of nursing home placement? And so you need to look at all of those things. And because this is more of a medically based waiver eligibility, it looks at a lot of that information. The CCC Plus process, in terms of being able to access the CCC Plus waiver, an individual would need to contact social services and request a screening for long-term care. Keep in mind, an individual cannot be denied a screening, and the screening should take place in the individual's home with the individual present. The screening team is comprised of the DSS social worker and or nurse from the Department of Health. They utilize the Universal Assessment Instrument, or the UAI. And then they have 45 days after that screening to let the family know of the decision. And with any Medicaid process, there is forgive me for stuttering, there is an appeal process in the event the individual is determined ineligible, that the family can follow through on to question and determine if that can be altered. In addition to the CCC Plus waiver, as I mentioned, towards the beginning of this presentation, I said that we have individuals as young as 6 months on the waiver waiting list. One of the reasons for that is that individuals, in order to be eligible for the individual and family support program, an individual must be on the waiting list. The individual and family support program is 4 tiers of different support. It's probably most known at the moment for its funding program, where individuals are able to access up to $1,000 annually for supports and services, or to purchase things that the individual who's on the waiting list would need. But it also offers partnerships to provide peer supports for families and self-advocates. And that's through the family-to-family program at the Partnership for People with Disabilities. as well as we are in the process of launching a peer-to-peer program with the ARC of Virginia that we hope will come online very shortly. The IFSP program also provides access to a lot of education, information, and general referral to other supports and services. And this is through the Senior Navigator program. And we have, in partnership with Senior Navigator, created a website, mylifemycommunityvirginia.org, I believe, where you can find additional information about supports and services that are available. And then finally, the IFSP community coordination aspect of the IFSP program. So we have an IFSP state council, IFSP regional councils, and then marketing and messaging about information, supports and services that are available. And I would encourage people to sign up for the IFSP mailing list, and or if you're a provider attending this session, I would also encourage you to sign up for the provider listserv for the emails that come out related to that as well, just so that you can stay on top of the information and resources that are being discussed. So in terms of resources for individuals on the waiver waiting list, get IFSP program updates by joining our email list. Getting connected with a peer mentor, learning about supports that you may be eligible for or to receive while you're waiting on the waiver waiting list, and also learn about other resources that may help you get the services and supports you need without a waiver, including early intervention services and case management supports and services. And always are looking for people to get connected through our IFSP state or local regional councils. And then finally, as funding becomes available, you know, reaching out and accessing that funding through the IFSP program. Employment eligibility. While you're waiting, if you're over the age of 18 and interested in seeking employment, you may be eligible for employment supports and services. You may be eligible if you have a physical, developmental, or behavioral health related disability, and that disability keeps you from finding or keeping a job. You want to work and you think employment services can help you, and you are in Virginia, live in or are moving to Virginia, and if you think you have a disability that has never been diagnosed, you may also apply. And you would apply through, I'm going to go back for a minute, our Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services. And they can get you connected to an employment service organization for supports and services once they go through the eligibility process. And so related to this, we looked at, for individuals getting started, if you're between the ages of 13 through 21 and still in school, we would encourage you to talk with the person who coordinates your child's 504 plan or individual education program, as they can help you with a referral to adult service agencies such as DARS, and invite a representative with your written consent to your child's meeting to talk about both pre-employment services and post-school employment services. And if the individual is, I said over 18 or over 22, no longer in school, have graduated, you can connect with your support coordinator or case manager, and they can help with a DARS referral. And if you don't have a support coordinator or case manager, you can find more information about the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services at the www.vadars.org, or by dialing 1-800-552-5019. And this is the previous, I think it's been updated slightly, employment supports and services regions for the Division of Rehabilitative Services districts and field offices throughout the Commonwealth. And if it's been updated, we will get you the most updated information. And then finally, wanted to talk about housing choice vouchers. We have housing choice vouchers that are available, but are available to individuals who've made an informed decision to lease and live in rental housing, and can be ready to move in with 120 days of being referred and or approved for a voucher, and have or will have adequate waiver, non-waiver, or natural supports in place to attain and maintain housing. Referrals for individuals who want to live with their parents, grandparents, or guardians are not accepted. So these are housing choice vouchers for individuals to live independently and on their own. And individuals can be referred for a housing choice voucher through their support coordinator or case manager, through community integration managers, or through the Center for Independent Living staff. So the referral agent completes the referral form in the waiver management system. And it's important that the entire referral be completed, especially info on others who will be living with the applicant, and to ensure that supports are secured before move-in to help the person live independently in the housing. Referrals for vouchers are made based on DOJ priority criteria. And for more information, you can see the frequently asked questions at our website here, and the referral form is also located on our website in our housing section. And I talked really fast because I actually did an hour-and-a-half presentation in a half an hour. So I am happy to open this up and just do a whole Q&A section about information or questions that individuals may have about navigating supports and services.
Thank you so much, Heather. I think we have a lot of participants logged in right now. So I'm thinking if we can maybe field questions in the chat box. I think it would be an awesome idea to take all this time to answer any questions. So if you have any questions, you can type in the chat box, or I think there's a hand raise feature if we need to use that. If you have a lengthy question, we can do that. Okay, thank you so much. So our first question, how many times may a person apply for these services if denied?
I do not know of any limit for individuals applying for them. I think that it depends on if their needs change, and we have certainly seen that occur with lots of individuals over time. And so I think that it is important for you to apply based on the individual's need and be persistent.
Heather, we also had a question about the availability of this presentation. Would this be available?
Yes, we can make that available.
Okay, thank you. Also, if everyone takes a look at the chat box before we finish, there is a link for everyone to please complete an electronic evaluation, and you will also be able to get your certificate of attendance. And Heather, we have another question. Can an individual with a child apply for a voucher?
No, vouchers are for individuals who are over the age of 18 and can sign and enter into a lease.
Okay, and the next question is, what behavioral services are available under an IFSP?
So the individual family support program doesn't have behavioral services per se. However, the funds that are available through the IFSP could be utilized to purchase behavioral services if needed. If an individual has insurance that is underwritten through Virginia, behavioral services as part of Virginia code are required to be delivered to individuals, such as ABA services and supports. And I'm always very clear to say that the insurance has to be underwritten in Virginia, and it has to be of a certain size company, because some larger corporations sometimes have their insurance policies underwritten in other states, and so therefore are not held or required to follow the Virginia code expectations around behavioral services, particularly for individuals who need ABA.
Do we have any more questions? We still have a good amount of time. And Heather certainly has a lot of knowledge and information to share. So if you have questions, please definitely type them in the chat box.
Yes, I am not used to usually finishing up so early.
Okay, here we do have another question. What is the information to join the mailing list?
Okay, if you go to our DBHDS webpage, there should be a link to join our mailing lists there for the IFSP, as well as on our provider development page if you wanted to join the provider listserv as well. And that's dbhds.virginia.allspelledout.gov. And then on there you would go to, I think it's offices. It's one of the drop downs, and you would see the individual and family support program for that, and click on that link and it will take you to that page and you'd be able to join from there.
Okay, our next question. Would IFSP funding be used to supplement insurance for ABA based on the child's need?
I know that all of our information on what IFSP can and cannot cover is on our webpage. I know that individuals have utilized it to supplement therapies and other things, so I suspect the answer to that is yes. You would just be able to document that need in the application process.
Our next question, how often does the VIDES need to be updated for an individual on the waiting list?
So if I recall correctly, I wish Eric Williams was here because he would know for sure. If I recall correctly, it has to be done at initiation onto the waiting list, and then it has to be redone once a waiver slot is reinitiated. Some CSBs and some programs have chosen to do that annually to keep it up to date. But it is required to get on, and then I know it is required to be updated prior to the waiver slot being awarded, just so that it is current and shows continued eligibility.
While I'm waiting to see if there's going to be any more questions, I just wanted to mention that I said earlier that we would be recording this session. So it will be on the Virginia Autism Council's website, and we will send that link to everyone who registered for the webinar, as well as Heather's presentation. Okay, our next question, information for older adults with disabilities, or they're asking, is there information for older adults with disabilities on the DBHDS website?
Can I have a little bit more clarification, specifically what information you're looking for related to that?
Information for older adults with disabilities around housing.
So the housing information would be the same regardless of age in terms of the availability of the vouchers and different things like that. If you need more specific information, I would encourage you to reach out to one of our housing specialists who are very knowledgeable, and we have them located in each of the regions, and they can get you connected with resources and supports. Can I ask you all a question? And maybe you could put this information in the chat. What additional information would you like to see? You know, if DBHDS were to come back and present again, what information would be helpful for you, or would you find important for us to get more information out about?
Oh, great. We're getting lots of things. Heather, someone said how to help parents with children with disabilities. This information is needed. And also someone said that they find flow charts very helpful in navigating a process, and asked, do you have any flow charts on how to navigate access in the various waivers?
No, but I think that that's a fabulous recommendation, and I am going to be working with our team because I agree with you. I think that some people follow written processes better, but other people follow flowcharts better. So I think that that's an excellent recommendation in terms of something that we can do to present the information in a variety of different ways so that people can understand and gain access to that. In terms of how to help parents with children with disabilities, and getting this information. I do know that it is probably one of the biggest concerns that I see, and I don't know that everybody understands the system in Virginia, and so I always am interested in learning from families how they learned about the system and what are the best ways to get that information to people. I think that not everybody, I know at least when I first moved to Virginia over 15 years ago, I did not understand the community service board system or how to get connected to community supports and services. But I'm also not certain that I still know the best way to get that information out to parents and families. So welcome any recommendations on how we can improve getting information out to people so that they had the information that they needed.
Thanks. Also, someone suggested schools and community collaboration resources. And another comment is one way to help parents is to refer them to Virginia's mandated parent training center. Oh, that's from Tammy Burns. Thank you. With Pizzi. So anyone who's not looking at the chat box right now, that's one way to help parents is to refer them to Pizzi. They provide free and confidential support to families, including how to navigate Virginia's waiver system.
And for those of you who can't see the chat or called in, www.peatc.org will get you connected to Pizzi. And Richard also offered up a transition point guide in the chat through the ARC of Northern Virginia. And the ARC of Virginia is also a great resource for families as well.
And we had a little hiccup a minute ago with the link to get to the certificate, and it is working now.
Therapy, so first, Nancy, I see your question about therapeutic day treatment. I will acknowledge that I am not the expert on therapeutic day treatment. My understanding, though, of therapeutic day treatment is that it is offered primarily in the school. But I am happy to do some follow-up with our child and family services team and get some additional information on that. I think though, when you're looking at for in-home services, probably the better option might be the intensive in-home that is available at least under Medicaid. Any additional questions? I will be the first to acknowledge I may not know all of the information, but I am always happy to follow up and get some additional information for you all if you would like.
Well, if we do not have any more questions, this is Rachel again. If we don't have any more questions, Heather, thank you so much for spending this time with us today to provide this valuable information. If everyone takes a look in the chat box before you sign off, there is the link again for the electronic evaluation that we would really, really appreciate you completing, as well as how to get to your certificate of attendance. But before I wrap it up, I did get one more question or comment. Families need to have their children assessed for the waiver waiting list as soon as their child is diagnosed. Thank you for that tip. But again, if we don't have any more questions, I will go ahead and wrap things up. But again, thank you so much. The Virginia Autism Council really appreciates Heather Norton for presenting this information, as well as for everyone spending your lunchtime with us. And thank you for all that you do. And feel free to reach out to Heather or the Virginia Autism Council, and we can help guide you in any way that we can.